everyone, and welcome. My name is Diane and I work in information services at the Belleville Public Library. We are very excited to launch our adult take-home craft kits starting April 2022. In April, our first craft is a painted egg. Many of you will be familiar with the extraordinary pisanka eggs, a craft that began thousands of years ago in Eastern Europe. Ukrainian people, as well as other cultures, have continued that tradition and paint these eggs in celebration of Easter. They are quite elaborate and ornate, beautifully handcrafted using wax, dyes, and a special tool called a kiska. Some of you may have even grown up with and learned this art. If you have, I envy you. This is an extraordinary art form. This particular method is quite involved, using a variety of kiska, dyes, waxes, a lit candle, etc. to create these eggs. I decided to search out opportunities to create something similar that is somewhat less complex, and learned that we can use acrylic paint with plastic eggs to recreate a pisanka style egg. I jumped on this opportunity and got started myself to see how this would work. It was a work in progress, trial and error, but over time I was able to create eggs that did somewhat resemble a pisanka style egg. I purchased the plastic eggs from the dollar store. They're already primed and ready to paint, as well as paint brushes, the acrylic paints, and the Mod Podge, which is the glaze that you can use afterwards. I also experimented with different tools to be able to make different sized dots on the eggs, because the dotted eggs are the ones that appeal to me the most. And I discovered that I can use a pencil eraser, the eraser on the end of a pencil, skewers, both the tip and the flat edge end of the skewer, as well as different size paint brushes to create those effects. I did some of my own creations in the beginning, just looking at various different pictures and eggs that had been done as pisanka eggs, and trying to replicate that in a much simpler way myself. And then I found various videos on YouTube that show you how to make them, both the wax painted eggs as well as eggs painted with acrylic. It took me a while to find the right paint consistency to work with, so I had to research that as well to see what I could add to the paint to make it slightly thicker and make it adhere to the egg a little bit better. It really does stand out once you seal it with the Mod Podge. The colors of the egg really come out at that point, and it's exciting to see. So I hope you enjoy this craft, and I hope that it's something you'll want to keep as an annual tradition yourself. Hi everyone. So in your kit, you're going to have written instructions, and then you're going to have an egg. This is the precise size of a small egg, which is kind of nice. And this one is already primed, so it doesn't need to be primed in order for us to start painting it. In addition, you're going to have your paints. Now, I'm going to show you the colors I'm working with. I have a purple, two shades of blue. Actually, I have three. I bought another shade of blue to work with as well. And I think for my base color, I think I'm going to choose the purple because it's the darkest color. You tend to want to use the darkest color on your base and then the lighter colors on top. And then to accent the egg, I use white, and that really brings out the other colors, as you'll notice when you're working on yours. I have paintbrushes. So I have included a paintbrush in your kit, but all of these supplies you can get at the dollar store. And so if you want to get more brushes, you can go to the dollar store and get a package very inexpensively if you choose to. I've also included a skewer. You can use the pointed top of the skewer as well as the bottom to make different size dots. In addition, you can use the end of a pencil to create the bigger dots on the egg. The other thing I have is a white pencil in order to map out the design on the egg. And it's always good to have lines to follow as you're trying to put together the geometric pattern that you're working with. One of the challenges I had when I first started working with the plastic eggs and acrylic paint was I found the paint to be a little thin, and so I wasn't getting the effect that I was hoping for. So I did a little bit of research and found out there's some methods that painters use, artists use, to thicken their paint or to thin their paint, depending on what the technique is they're trying to work with. And to thicken the paint, I discovered you can use actually glue and talcum powder. There are going to be additional supplies that you want to ensure you have readily available for yourself, and I'm just going to explain to you what those are. I picked up a palette from the dollar store, but if you don't have something like that, or you don't want to do that, then you can use a piece of wax paper, a piece of foil paper, or you can use an old pie plate. That works as well. I keep a glass of water on hand so that I can dip my brush into it to clean it. I usually have a couple of tissues here as well. And then once the egg is all finished and completely dried, you will be covering it in glaze, and I use the gloss Mod Podge, and that works just nicely. We're ready to go. What I do is pour about because I'm doing the whole egg, almost a dime's worth of my base paint into one of the containers here. And then I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to add almost as much. And then I'm going to take my talcum powder. I'm going to add, it spills out a little bit. You can't really completely avoid that. Okay, and then I'm going to stir it all together. And it will make a nice, thick, add a bit more talcum powder in there. Nice, thick consistency to go onto your egg. You have to hold the egg in order to work with it. I'm not sure I have said that yet, so I'm going to share that with you now. So I tend to work with 1/2 at a time, and I try to do as long a stroke as I possibly can. I want this to go on fairly thick and fairly even. You are going to have to do 2 coats of base to get a nice solid looking color because we've added glue, and that thickens the paint, but it tends to dilute the color just somewhat. And then I'll leave that paint there in the tray, and I take a little piece of cardboard, I've included it in your kit, and I make a circle out of it and I tape it together, and then I use that as my little stand for my egg to dry on. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is the preparation for getting ready. It's really important. You'll be painting the entire egg with your base color. I'm going to show you these while I'm talking for a little bit. Then marking the egg with the diagram you need that is your map for designating areas and ensuring everything is symmetrical. Keep in mind that painting an egg is so different than canvas because the surface is round. This setup may be in place for a couple of days depending on your schedule. Using acrylic paints is somewhat more challenging. What I've learned as I experimented with painting an egg is you need a steady hand. You need to thicken the paint, which is why I have the glue and talcum powder included in your kit. And you mix equal parts paint and glue and about 1/8 teaspoon of talcum powder. Drying time is extremely important. Your egg will be painted in stages. The paint does not dry as fast as wax, so painting an egg with acrylic paint has to happen in stages. I usually complete an egg over a 2 to 3 day period as I fit this craft around my other life activities. You'll be holding your egg to paint the different sections of it, which means you don't want to smudge the paint you have just added. You need to wait for those sections to dry before you start a new section. You can see what the first coat looks like, and clearly it needs a second coat. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And to keep my paint from drying up, I just put a little bit of saran wrap over the palette, and I'll wash my brush and have it ready to go. Here we are with our fully painted egg in purple. And now I'm going to start to diagram the egg so I have the symmetrical diagram to work with before we get started dotting it. I have a white pencil, and I'm going to start with a dot on the top of the egg, like that. And then I have a piece of paper, and it's this size, as you can see. And I'm going to wrap it around the egg at the center and figure out where it needs to be taped. There, that's the end, right there. And I'm going to tear that off. And then I'm going to fold it 4 times, folding it in half. Folding it in half. Folding it in half again, folding it in half again, and one more time. And now I'm going to pull the paper apart, and I'm going to mark everywhere where there was a fold with the magic marker. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this around the center of the egg, like so. These lines are going to be, I'm just going to put a bit of tape on that, just like that. And these lines will represent where I need to draw the lines on the egg. And then what I'm going to do, hold this paper just over the one side of the egg, matching it up to the lines that I've drawn. And I'm going to start going up and over like this. So you can see that I've got 1/2 section drawn over the top. And then I'm going to take the same paper, bring it around to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. But it gives you an idea of the symmetry we're trying to establish here. So we have a pattern to follow as we work through. And it's really easier than drawing it freehand in many ways. But I'm just defining the lines a little greater. Like I said, they're gonna get covered over with the dots, so we don't need to worry about having them there. And that's my boo-boo, but that's okay. And then I will extend it and draw it down further to the bottom of the egg, like so. It just makes drawing these lines a little easier. And they don't have to be exactly precise, but it gives you a sense of where things are at as you're trying to line things up to put your pattern on there. and you can get a sense of the diagram that's on the egg that you can follow. The next thing we're going to do is set up the circles on the egg, and it makes it easier if you can have something to draw towards. So I like to mark it like this, and like that. So you're going to come around like so, and there you can see your first circle that's been created. And then we're going to do a few more. We're going to start here, and then you just draw from one to the next. And here you can see it all mapped out on the egg, like so. Now I'm going to create my starting dot in the center up here, and I'm actually going to use the end of a pencil eraser. There it goes. Just like that. And then you can just wipe that paint off the end of the eraser. And there's your starting dot that you're working with. Now I'm working with my white paint. And I'm going to put the dots all the way around the blue dot, the main blue dot that's there. So I'm going to go like this, and this, and this, and this. So we have our starting blue dot, our white dots all around. We're going to put a different color blue, and we're going to, or your second color of whatever your primary colors are, and you're going to put it between the white dots on the next line down. And here you have the third color that we've put on here now. So we have our original dot, the white ones, and another row of color, a different color blue. Now I'm going to put another circle of dots around that color of blue from the original blue color, and I'm going to use the end of a skewer to make this happen. Okay. And here we have the next circle of dots. Okay, now I'm going to make bigger dots with the end of the pencil eraser, and they're going to go once around in between each of the zones here. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So one will go here, one will go here, one will go there, one will go there, and one there. I'll just get that a little more round. Okay, and you can see my lovely blue dots all around the way around the egg here. And then what we're going to do is circle it with slightly lighter blue dots. I'm going to mix that paint next. So I've mixed my lighter blue color, it's here, and I'm going to start to draw the tiny blue dots all the way around here. There. So I've done the light blue circles around the royal blue dots. And I'm going to keep going with each of these. And here you can see the pattern that creates. So now we're going to do the darker blue dots all the way around underneath. I'm just giving it a second coat around to make sure these are nice and big size, because some of them were turned out a little smaller, so I want to fix that. Now this would be a good time to sit the egg and let it dry, because we've got quite a bit of wet paint here that needs to dry. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we've let these dry a little bit, is we're going to put one big dot, and it's going to go, I don't know if you can see this, right underneath, right at that where the sections meet in the diagrammed area. So I'm going to use my contrasting color of blue to go in there. It's my royal blue, and I'm going to use the end of an eraser. And you can see how that's laid out on the egg. Now that our dots are dry, what I'm going to do is place a circle of white dots around the most recent row of blue dots that I created. Let's get started. We can allow these dots to be very close together. And very close to the circle that they're going around. After this, we're going to make a nice, lovely design between these large circles. All right, as you can see, we now have the white dots around all of the large blue dots. And now we get to play a little bit with a new design. I don't think I did a very good job of showing you how to make this design in between the circles here. So it's fairly simple. You do a dot, I have a wet brush, and then you pull it up, and a dot, and you pull it up. And as you can see, mine's not perfect. So I did 3 to begin with. Let's find a better example. There's the best one I have. A dot, and then I pulled the line up, a dot, and then I pulled it up. Same, that's kind of a wonky one, but it's okay. And then you can go shorter lines in between if you have space, and then dot in between. The whole idea is that you're creating a design between the eggs that have the round circle of white dots. And then what I did next was I'm going to create almost a V shape, but it's circular, underneath the blue dot with the white dots around it, and it's going to look almost like a swag. So in this case, it's 5 dots that I start with, And then I'm going to layer it with 7, and then I'm going to have 8 under that. So it almost looks like the delicate crystals that hang down from a chandelier. It's sort of that idea. We're making a chandelier design. Okay, so let me get started on the second color. You'll probably see it better because this is a very dark blue. So let's go with the lighter one and see if this makes more sense to you. So there's a sample of what I've done with the lighter blue, slightly lighter blue. Okay, I've done my 3 lines of dots underneath, like a chandelier, like I described. And now I'm painting teardrops at the tip of that swag. And I'll show you what I do. Just a couple of strokes like that, and then you fill it in. Now what comes next is doing dots all the way around that teardrop, like this. All right. And we'll just keep going. It's a contrasting blue color that you're using. And here I can show you this a little bit more closely. There. So those ones are finished, and again I'm going to let it dry a little longer. This is really starting to look like something now. I love it. Okay, as these blue dots around the teardrop dry, and we're going to do a little bit of a tinier teardrop inside that teardrop in a darker color. What I'm going to do now is take the end of the skewer, and I'm going to create dots right there, right in that open part above the teardrops on either side. And for that paint color, I think I'm going to choose the darker blue, and we'll go like this. And there you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting these dark circles in between. So here we have these very dark blue circles in between, and what I'm going to do next is put white dots all around them. So now this one's going to be a little more challenging because we got to go light with our hands. Have a really nice light touch. Let's see if I've got one that's more dry. Not so much, but I'll work with a bit more space here. It's going to go white all the way around, so it looks like that. And now I'm going to work on the remaining dots. So here you can see the white circles that I've put around the darker dots. The next thing I did was to take my paintbrush and put a very small amount of the blue paint into the teardrops that I made. And then next, what we're going to do is take some of the white paint, and for the white dots there, we're going to put one right here and then draw a line down like that. Let's try this again. One right here, and then draw a line down. I'm going to get a bit more white paint to make that more clear. Make that a little longer, so that when you look at the egg from that end, it's got a very interesting design. I tried to do a swag pattern, but it didn't work so well because I'm nearing the end of the egg. So I think it's probably better just to use circles in your case. Just go circular with your lighter color, then your slightly darker, your medium color, and then your darkest color. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with my white dots. Let's get the water off of that. And white dot around it like this. And then finally, my final dot, I'm going to make the nice dark blue here, the peacock blue. The fun part of this is accenting the egg. So once you get all these colors here, you can tell that the white does a really nice job of pulling out the rest of the colors. So we're going to go around and we're going to see if we can add some white in various places to create that effect. So I've decided that I don't just need to use white paint to decorate this slightly more. I can use some contrasting paint within the circles as well. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do the same thing with the dark eggs just below there. But I think I actually want to dot them with white to try and pull that blue color out of them. So let's give that a try and see how that works. And there we are with the white accent. In the center of this blue egg, I'm gonna also do I think a lighter blue. I haven't decided, lighter blue or dark. I'm gonna try the lighter blue first. And if I don't like it, then I'm gonna put the dark color over it. So let's give it a try. Oh yeah, I do like that. So I'll go all the way around. And there. You can see it's starting to come together. I think I'm looking at it and I'm trying to decide if there's anything else I'm going to do. I think I'll let it dry for a bit and then I'll take a look at it again and I'll decide if I want to add anything more. I'm going to try and pick this up, but I've been painting it, so let's see. If I do it like this, this should be good. So what I've done is I've gone around the egg and I've added dots inside of dots for the larger dots. And even my teardrops, I added some white paint inside of those as well. And it gives a nice accent to the rest of the egg and what you're trying to achieve. And I think overall it's a pretty darn good design. I did follow a YouTube video for this for the most part, but I couldn't do everything on the egg that they did because the egg they're using is larger. I'll give you the name of the video on your written package. It's referenced there actually. And it is an intermediate level design. So hats off to all of you for getting through this design as creatively as you did. Good job. Next, we'll be glazing it, and that will be the last step in creating our egg. We're at our final stage of finishing the egg. I've taken my blue egg and I have glazed half of it already, and I'm just about to put the Mod Podge gloss glaze on the other half. When it goes on just like a glue. It'll look like glue. I'm going to show you that. But it does dry clear, so you don't need to panic when you see that. It's going to be fine. And it gives a nice shiny glaze to your egg as well as sealing the paint so that the paint does not chip. And I put it on just like I would be painting the egg, the initial coat. As you can see, the other side here is already glossed. You can see the shine, the light reflecting off of it. And then this is the side that will need to dry, and it will, and it'll look just like this when it's done. Hi there. We are at the end of the instructions for painting the egg. Some of you did receive the kit with the blue paints in them, but some of you received a kit with the reds and oranges and yellows. So I'm also going to paint that same egg, and I'll show it to you in this video in pictures. So it's not as long of an instruction because you've already received that, but you have a chance to see what that looks like as I put that egg together. I hope you enjoyed putting your eggs together and creating these, and I look forward to doing another craft with you at some point in the future. Have fun.